To talk about abuse today. And first I'm going to talk about what is abuse. The Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act defines abuse as a recent act or failure to act that results in death, serious physical or emotional harm, sexual abuse, or risk of serious harm involves a child and is carried out by the parent or caregiver who is responsible for the child's welfare. Next, we're going to talk about the child abuse. More than 4 million cases of child abuses are reported each year. It is one of the leading causes injury-related mortality in infants and children. More than 1,400 children die from infant injuries, 25% who are younger than 12 months. So they're younger than 1 year old. Next is physical abuse. We have the unexplained bruises and welts, which can be on the face, the lips, mouth, the torso, the back, or the thigh. We have the unexplained burns, which come from cigars, the cigarette burns, rope burns on the arm, legs, neck, or the torso. And we have the unexplained fractures, which can be in the skull, the nose, or the facial structure. And behaviors, which is where the parents are contacted, or they are aggressive, or they withdraw from a person. They are frightened of their parents, they are afraid to go home, and they report the injury by parents. Next, we have the physical neglect, which is consistent hunger, poor hygiene, inappropriate dress, consistent lack of supervision, and abandon. And they are they beg, they steal food, they stand to stay after school, they are in alcohol or drug abuse, and they state there is no caretaker. Next, we have sexual abuse, which is the problems in walking or sitting, they torn or stained or bloody underclothing, pain or itching in the genital area, and they can become pregnant. And we have the unwilling to change for gym or participate. They are withdrawn from doing these things. They have unusual sexual behavior or knowledge. They have poor peer relationships, and they report the sexual assault by a caretaker. We, as the educators, we have the educator roles. Schools and educators must take an active role in child abuse and neglect treatment and prevention. Child abuse and neglect is a community problem. Its solution requires community action. Educators must indicate their willingness to help, and the community must make them welcome. The involvement of educators in school can reduce child abuse and neglect in the community. We can't say this. That's too bad. Let me see. No. And my last slide.
Control Alt and minimize the phone.
That was too big. Okay, which is, I got it on paper. My last slide was, an abused child has approximately a 50% chance of being abused again and has an increased risk of dying if the abuse is not caught and stopped after the first time. And if you experience any abuse, please dial 1-800-422-4453.
Thank you, Dominique.
Any questions?
I really liked your presentation.
Any questions? Oh, and I had a sheet with more stuff on child abuse. They say that 1 million children are maltreated each year, between 100,000 to 200,000 are physically abused, 60,000 to 100,000 are sexually abused, and each year more than 2,000 children die in the circumstances of abuse and neglect. And for sexual abuse, girls are reported as abused at a much higher rate than boys. And they are young as 4 months for sexual abuse, and between the average of 11 and 14 years of age. And with sexual abuse, you get the incest, which is a person who was abused by a member, his or her family member. So abuse could happen physically, sexually, emotional. Like they talk about emotional abuse, but I didn't talk about emotional abuse. And they also talk about drug abuse as well. So abuse could happen in a lot of ways. And you have a lot of ways to witness abuse. And if you witness any abuse, please dial that number. Because you can help the next person.
I got a question for you. What kind of sources did you use to find this?
I
These
used
statistics.
2 sites. I used 4 journal articles
Okay.
and 4 books,
Okay.
which is on the back of my paper. A site I did use was the abuse website, which talks about the several types of abuse, and they list all the abuse that can occur. Y'all missed my presentation.
Where's Billy at?
Man. Mrs. Pearson, you see this?
No, well.
You did some video.
All right, let's give her, any other questions from the audience? All right.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?